Husbando enjoyers assemble. It is finally your time to shine as Tower of Fantasy welcomes its, as promised, one male character per year, Asurada. Yes, you heard that right. There's male characters in Tower of Fantasy, disregarding Zeke from last year, who is technically a launch day character, and Icarus, who's a femboy and doesn't count. The last time Toph got a new male character was Tianlong back in 2022. Asurada is also the first ever male character to receive an actual gachapon skin with different weapon special effects, so the devs are definitely doing him justice in that department. But do his triple swords do him justice as a flame physical DPS weapon, and is he fun to play with? Let's find out in this kit video, because you won't be able to find out on your own in his dorm room, which was given to Roslyn instead. Asurada's Shatter is good at 16, but his Charge is kind of mid at 12, although Charge really isn't necessary in current Flame teams, as the only Discharge that you should be doing is at the beginning of the fight anyways, and you jump cancel the rest. Asurada's weapon, Hellfire, is primarily a main DPS weapon, but can be an okay background buffing weapon if we get a better main DPS weapon in the future. His main source of damage is his fancy special dodge attacks, be it either double dodging or holding dodge and releasing. But don't worry, all of his dodge attacks are somehow considered as basic attack damage, so for Titan stats, you can stick to your basic attack damage buff as a flame main. Asurada's Triple Swords is a flame physical weapon with the passives Armor Dissolve, a flame physical fusion, both flame and physical resonance, and on field, which deals additional damage when you do basic attacks, all similar to previous weapons with the same effects, which I won't elaborate on anymore. There are no other exclusive passives, so let's move on to his basic attacks. Asurada's basic attacks are super fancy, with all kinds of combos and holding at different attacking points to trigger all kinds of cool moves, almost like a fighting game. Unfortunately, or fortunately for those that want simplicity, the only thing that matters here is his 5-hit basic attack sequence, not for its damage, but mainly for its speed in generating clones from his skill. So what does his skill do? On cast, you enter the Flame Soul state, where you get a final damage buff for 25 seconds. You also get a second buff called Roleplay that lasts for 21 seconds. During roleplay, you get Hyper Body, and every normal or dodge attack will generate an after image that will copy that attack and deal 50% of the original damage. The after image then stays on the field for up to 30 seconds, up to a cap of 5 after images on the field at once. If more gets triggered, the previous ones will expire. And all of these after images count as summons for whoever's kit works with summons like Nola and Ziyu. So, what's the point of the after images sticking around then? That's where his dodge attacks come in. Besides Asurada's regular dodge and directional dodge attacks, which are pretty irrelevant, he also has a unique hold dodge and double dodge. The hold dodge, called Unstoppable Momentum, when the dodge button is released, allows Asurada to charge in the direction of the camera if no enemy targets are nearby. Great for exploration, as you can aim this up into the sky for airtime. If there is a locked on target, the charge will instead go towards the enemy, and at the same time, all existing after images will also perform the same unstoppable momentum dash at the target, doing massive damage and disappearing. If the target is killed, however, the after images persist and can be used again without the need to summon more through basic attacking. The double dodge, on the other hand, will lunge forward if outside of his skill buff, which is very useful. But while his skill buff is active, the double tap dodge will instead do a cool looking spinning uppercut. You can then combo with a special plunge move immediately after to get back on the ground by left clicking. And once again, this move will also trigger all his existing after images to do a coordinated unstoppable momentum attack into the air, and the plunge attack too will trigger the after images once more. Do note that if the target is not dead when the uppercut happens, the after images will disappear before being able to do another unstoppable momentum via the plunge attack. So basically, only do the uppercut into plunge if you can kill the target with the uppercut, otherwise it's slower than the dodge hold and not worth using. Finally, Asurada's Discharge, as mentioned earlier, is pretty irrelevant for the most part for DPS purposes, providing the usual debuff removal and iframes like all other discharges. There is, however, a pretty unique 30-second, 60% healing reduction on hit targets that might be useful for bosses that have healing. In general, you just want to jump cancel the Discharge immediately and cast his skill instead. And that's it for his abilities. Let's move on to his stars. The 1-star effect allows the after images summoned by roleplay to instead deal full damage of the copied attack instead of only half. This sounds like a lot on paper, but in practice through testing, it was a pretty minor 10% DPS increase. If you can't get the 1-star without wasting a lot of resources, I'd recommend just staying at 0 stars. The 3-star effect gives Unstoppable Momentum a 10% damage buff for each after image that's on the field, and when you have the maximum amount of after images, which is 5, you instead get a 100% damage buff, which is basically double the original damage. This effect here is a massive 50% increase over 0-star, and I highly recommend anyone that can get 3 stars to get it, as it's a great stopping point. The 5-star effect, as usual, is a survivability effect, where every after image consumed by Unstoppable Momentum will now provide a 6% HP shield, up to 60%. Pretty nice star effect for survivability purposes, but as usual, not necessary. Finally, the 6-star effect is just a simple damage boost for his base skill's existing damage boost. The usual whale star for more damage, although this time at only a 23% final damage increase over the base 10%, is kinda low, and not really worth it. But if you're going for A6, this doesn't really matter for you, so just get it anyways. Damage is damage. Now, let's take a look at his matrices. The 2-piece set simply increases flame attack. The exclusive effect of the 2-piece is a multiplier increase for his main DPS special dodge, Unstoppable Momentum, which comes out to be about a 33% increase in damage. Moving on to the 4-piece set, this time, unlike the Vault matrices from the last Meryl banner, actually has a generic all elemental damage increase effect, and as usual, the unique effect when Hellfire, his weapon, is equipped is just a simple final damage buff. Very straightforward and pretty strong matrices, it's just that the long-term potential is now lower with these since the unique effect is 1-to-1 with the permanent effect, unlike previously where it was 1-to-2. So when his weapon gets rotated out of the meta, his matrices aren't as good. But honestly, just get it if you have the resources. There's plenty of special vouchers anyways if you stick to one element. For Asurada's Simulacra trait, he gives the usual 18% final damage like all traits, and the second effect is also a very straightforward 14% flame damage increase when his weapon Hellfire is equipped. Basically, if you use Asurada, you use his trait, as it completely power crept the previous meta GU trait that requires 2 targets to get 14% flame damage. For Relic Selection, since Asurada's optimal rotation is 25 seconds, Coant is out of the picture. So instead, we use the brand new buff dealer at 5 stars as the main relic since it's just better than anything else. An overdrive shot for short form content, or the usual suspects of Thalassic Heart, Bubblegum, Mask, or Control Gun for long form content, as the other relic. For the free to play without Battle Pass relics, just stick to the usual Coant and Shield or Rift. Asurada's weapon kit looks pretty dank with all the combos and shit, but his actual rotation is really simple. As the main DPS weapon, all you need to do is buff first with the other 2 weapons, switch to him, jump cancelling his Discharge since it's for the most part unnecessary, skill immediately, and proceed to do basic attacks. Once a full sequence is done, and you have 5 after images, you hold dodge and let go for big damage. And you can double tap dodge for the uppercut style points, just make sure to plunge back to the ground with left click after. Do 4 of these basic attack into hold dodge combos, then back to the other weapons for buffs, and repeat. The meta comp with GU doesn't even need to switch to her, so it's just Nola skill and immediately back to more Asurada. Now, here's a quick demonstration of the maxed meta CN team consisting of Nola, Asurada, and GU in action. Start on Asurada with 1 Discharge available. You can easily build Discharge with Nola directional dodge attacks, by the way. First, cast GU's Discharge. Then immediately switch to Nola and use her skill to get the flame buff. Then immediately switch to Asurada. If you happen to be casting Asurada's Discharge on switch, just jump cancel and skill immediately. After the skill, do basic ground attacks until the 5th hit where he stabs the ground. Cancel the remaining animation by holding dodge and letting go immediately when you see him do the pose. And back to basic attacks. Do this until Nola's skill is almost off cooldown, switch to Nola, jump cancelling her Discharge, cast skill, rinse and repeat. And that's it for his rotations. This same logic can be applied to every buffing weapon when played with Asurada, so I won't be going over the other rotations. Just do note that things like Faisa, Asuka, or Yemiao passives that require dodge attacks can't be triggered by any of his special dodges, and a regular back dodge or directional dodge needs to be done, which makes them less than ideal partners. Finally, let's talk about all the other Asurada teams for those players that don't have the ideal meta team of Asurada, Nola, and GU, where Asurada is the main DPS and Nola plus GU are the buffing sub-DPS weapons. Other buffing or off-field DPS weapons can all work with Asurada to a certain extent, as long as they have minimal field time and are able to provide generic buffs that let you do more flame damage with Asurada. Weapons that work with Asurada can be Asuka, Plotty, Yemiao, Nyan, Faisa, Zeke, Liuho, Fiona, Lan, Lin, Ruby, Claudia, or Tsubasa. Just pick any 2 on the list, cast their buffing off-field abilities, and main DPS with Asurada. For matrices setups, again, the most optimal is everyone using their own 4-set matrices. But if you don't have other limited matrices and only pulled for Asurada 4-piece, you want to put his 4-piece on any of the buffing weapons since the matrices effects work completely in the background. If you didn't pull for his 4-piece, any background matrices from the below list can be put on your 2 background weapons. 2+2-piece altered, besides Nola of course, Jiyu, Asuka, Plotty, Yanmiao, Faisa, Zeke, Liuho, Lan, Ruby, Scylla, Habola, or Shiro. Other alternative off-element matrices can also be considered if they at least provide some sort of generic buff. Basically, anything that can provide background attack or flame attack, all elemental damage or flame damage, or final damage or crit damage should work. Just make sure the matrices say that it works in the background or has a buffing duration. For the main DPS weapon, Asurada, you should use your typical free-to-play main DPS setup, 2-piece Lyra plus 2-piece Samir. Alternative 2-piece includes any relevant 2-piece limited, or Shiro, Crow, Cobalt, Habola, or Scylla. Overall, Asurada is the first post-version 4.0 Flame character, and also the first and only playable male character of the Guest House Network story arc, is very strong and gives Flame players a huge boost back into the meta, with a very flashy moveset, but still pretty simple rotation. Asurada lets you DPS in style and have fun at the same time. At least I definitely had a lot of fun playing Asurada in the open world, especially with that dodge hold allowing me to yeet myself into the sky on demand. Also, for anyone thinking about starting a flame team, especially the physical mains with the existing weapons, or anyone else for that matter since Zeke is joining standard on the same patch, and he is super good at A6 for a free weapon by the way, Asurada is a great starting point main DPS weapon for anyone thinking about getting a flame comp for endgame modes. So, what do you think of Asurada? Did he do the male character slot of 2024 justice? Will you pull for him, or are you a male skipper? Let me know in the comments below. That's it for this kit review. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more. Good luck on his pulls, or have fun enjoying Rosalind's new dorm, whichever type of player you are.